Hello, merry time of day, good evening in our case. Let's see, many. Keep trying new setups and I can't find one that I really gel with. There's always something. In this case, I like the setup, but I have the chat a little bit far away. A little bit hard time seeing you all and your comments, but I think we have a workable in between. How are you, everyone? I hope you are doing well. Now I need to remember what we were doing. Kelly says they were enjoying tea and toast to the background music. That sounds like a very cozy place to be. Lynn, poor thing, is so tired they are about to fall asleep. That is not the best place to be. Let's be real. We have a lot of weather today. We still have a lot of, I don't know if most of you have started spring proper yet, but we have a lot of rain and wind, and it is still pretty cold, if I am completely honest. Oh, Loxelair got some cookies baking this morning. That does sound lovely. I have this monstrous shawl that we have been working on for months with only the crochet edging left to do, so maybe we shall finish it today. That shall be exciting. It was so loud that I had to close my window properly. I usually have it like a tiny bit ajar so we can get a little more fresh air into the room, but the wind is so loud that I knew I didn't want to have it because it would just disrupt everything. And we still have our little crochet edge pattern that we have shared in the Discord, in the crochet channel, and we figured out it was from a Japanese or Chinese. We found both versions. I'm not sure which is the original, but we did find it, so it exists. And it was really, really cool. Looks good so far, thank you. We are very close to done. Kelly says they are working on some crocheted ribbing on their Granny Hexie sweater. That sounds really fun. It's nice to do the... I like doing this finishing touches, but then they also take a fair long while, but oh, they're so worth it though. Such fun. Where is the cat? I think they're both downstairs today. Sometimes they are here, sometimes they are not. They are cats after all, and they do what they please. We have a really tall cupboard down in the living room that goes almost all the way up to the ceiling, and we placed a basket, like a very short basket, so not very tall, all the way at the top with a little blanket, and they love it. They think it is the best. They will rediscover it sometimes and just really enjoy lying in it. They just really enjoy being tall. Am I really blurry? Did I forget to actually put a focus on myself, Madam Camera? Hello. Face. Still look very blurry. Why are you not cooperating? Oh well, at least we are. Mostly for the listening experience, so hopefully it is not. Or maybe it's just my resolution looking more weird. Hello to my favorite knitting live streamer. Well, thank you. That is high praise indeed. And it is a very nice thing to be hanging out with one another. Cats are free spirit creatures? Indeed they are. So I could entice them to join us if I shake the snack jar, but that kind of company is always short-lived. I find they come and they get really excited because there are snacks, and then they run off just as fast again. So it's not really the long-lived snuggles on the lap that we sometimes get if they are in such a mood. But Sud already had plenty of snuggle time in my sling as I was working this morning, so maybe she feels like she's had her snuggle quota for the day. It varies very much so. And of course we are nearing the warmer season in these parts of the world, which means generally that cats are a little bit more happy to lie elsewhere. So it is still snuggly year round, but especially in winter when it's cold. Lynn says our cat is the most Velcro in the universe. That is sweet. Embla is very Velcro to Spouse though, but she will join me when Spouse is not at home. Sud varies, like sometimes she's really Velcro and sometimes she will sleep in a secret hiding spot in the basement for half the day and no one will be any the wiser. It's her mood changes and she just enjoys moving around wherever she finds herself. And sometimes they sleep with us and sometimes they don't. We don't dictate where they hang out. You just entered what kind of crochet thing am I doing? That is a very good question. Give me just a moment to fasten this so that I can show it without losing all my stitches. Let's fasten the ribbon for good measure for those of you who have just joined. We have some other crochet projects in the chat too, if you want to, but we are working on a As You Like It shawl, same one that exists on my channel, except chat convinced me to do a lovely crocheted edge. So we finished the shawl some time ago, the knitting part of it. It is, ever changing. If you want to make your own, I did make a video with a free pattern that you can download for you, and then we finished it and I was talking about edgings and chat was like, yes, do an edge, do a crochet edge. And so we did. And it is a slow progress. I'm not the fastest crocheter in the world, and I chose something that was a little bit out of my, what shall we say, skill level, so I have been slow progress, but this is the last row, so we might finish it today. Let's see if I can show it a little bit more close up. Oop. So since I found this amazing pattern, I wanted something with a lot of dimension, like a lot of waviness, because sometimes I think some crochet edgings are a little bit narrow, so I wanted one that had like a lot of waviness going on. So I found this clipping from a book, and as you can see, because wool is quite thick, it is almost as big as my hand for one repeat. I think it's very like spider web-ish with a lot of picots. I think it's very nice. we have a pattern over here. It comes from a Japanese book that I can link in chat because I did save that. Let me see, where did I put it? If people are curious. I know it is in Japanese, but it is mostly pictures, so that kind of, if you can read diagrams, you can figure it out, and we want to give credit where credit is due. Wait, where did my last row? Yes, Luxel, I had hoped maybe, if I'm not too clumsy or we don't get into too many other exciting subjects, that maybe we will finish this shawl today, which also means we'll have to choose what to do next time, find something else to do. And we also have a little yarn chicken going on where I have a pretty small ball of yarn for how much yarn crocheting uses. I really... Camera, why are you so blurry? I don't understand. What are you doing? I don't want spot focus. I want you to cancel the focus. And focus on me properly so that people don't get headaches or anything from... I think it's better now. At least the parts that I see. The hectic hobbyist says, my cat spent the entirety of yesterday with me, dead asleep the whole time. Oh, that is sweet. Cats are so affectionate. They're very, very sweet little beings. They can also be very loud, especially when Embla wants to play. She can be very, very loud. So what's everyone else up to this fine Thursday? Are you just having a relaxing Thursday, or are you up to something exciting? The edges remind you of half flowers? Still not your skill level yet? Oh, I don't know about that. I am not a big crocheter. I am very slow. My friend taught me as an adult. I only know a couple of stitches, you know, the basic, the chain stitches and the treble and double crochet and those basic stitches. And yet, a lot of the diagrams are made up of those basic stitches. So it works out so long as we are patient. And it's quite fun to be, you know, at that edge of your skill level, so you're challenging yourself a little bit. Sometimes. And then sometimes it's nice to be in our comfort level and just create something based on the skills we already have. Luxel has a big plan today. Baking cookies, tidying the kitchen, and then tea and cookies. Well, tea, cookies, and knitting the sleeve of their sweater. That sounds very nice. I do not have any cookies at the moment, but I do have tea, which makes everything better. Rebecca says they are starting, we're carding wool to spin for a sweater project. Oh, there are so many of you who are doing from, what is it called, from fleece to sweater. And they are such cool projects. Oh, they're so fun to see when you go all the way from unspun fleece all the way to a finished garment. I mean, how much power is there in that? That you can take something from an animal and just make it into a garment that you can wear is pretty cool. So I hope you have a lot of fun with that. I am having fun with many picos. Sheep to sweater, thank you Luxoler, that is what they call them. Yeah, I think those projects are so cool. So time consuming, but so amazing. Also sheep to shawl, ooh. Now that's tempting. I remember seeing those competitions too, where you have a team of knitters and spinners and carders and everything, and they as a team do a sheep to shawl project, but then they do it actually within a pretty short time frame, and they are so fast. We'll make up competitions for anything, I swear, but as long as people are having fun, that is the most important. I keep putting my crocheting out of frame because I have it all the way up. Someone else do that too. I feel like for tendinitis and that kind of thing, you're supposed to have your work down in your lap so that your arms are resting. But I'm nearsighted and this is very far away from my eyes, so I usually will end up like up here. Close to my face, where I naturally have an easier time seeing them. Rebecca says they used to do those competitions with 4 spinners and a weaver. Oh, that is really cool. I like it when we have fun with the craft so that people actually get to meet other people and have fun with it. So often people sit in their own houses and don't always get out and talk to other creative, crafty, amazing people. Look, Siller asking how it feels to be a god among fiber crafters to Rebecca, who had been in those speed weaving, spinning competitions. I love that we are so enthusiastic about crafters and crafting and techniques in all shapes and sizes. Everything is good. It actually reminds me, when I was a student in Tromsø, I actually joined an archery guild, and they were very much into reenacting medieval and Viking Age. Is how I got into reenacting in the first place. And they were all about traditional bows and wooden bows, and you're always just competing with yourself because you are the person you're competing with is yourself yesterday, no one else. And we had a very laid back, very chill, non-competitive vibe. And then some actual competitive archers joined, and it was just a clash of culture because we were very chill and they wanted to practice seriously for competitions, and I think they ended up splitting in the end into 2 different archery guilds because no one wanted to ruin the fun of the other, but it was also quite a big culture clash, so having different days for different practice types ended up being the easiest way to solve that, because everyone would like to join with the people that they enjoy being with. And yeah, that was a bit interesting, how the differences just kind of showed themselves. don't think I could ever join any kind of speed crafting competition because I am a slow crafter, very much a snail's pace type of worker. Also, the speed knitters who do like more than, I think, more than 2 stitches a second, 1 or 2 stitches a second, is intense. It's very impressive. Hello, Stripy Crayons, welcome. We are having a very laid back Thursday. It is frigid and cold in Trondheim today. It is very windy and very rainy, and I almost find it easier in proper winter when it's snowing and it's below freezing because you just bundle up in all the wool, but you can just brush off all the snow. But this kind of wet wind that just gets under your skin and you just get wet no matter how you try to stay dry, I just get so cold. I feel like I get colder in this like in-between season because you're preparing to get into proper spring, but you're not quite there yet. You still have a little way to go. I almost feel like I'm more cold this time of year than when it's proper below freezing. I don't know. I like rain, but it also does keep me pretty cold. So I have actually been quite enjoying. Everyone else is gearing up for spring, and here I am bundling up in my wool skirt and wool shawls and having a grand time. Stripy Crayon says they are having the most delicate spring here, and the snow piles are getting smaller and smaller, giving us false hope. Oh no. I think we are starting to get into proper spring now. I mean, it is a little bit between slush and rain, but the snow piles are definitely shrinking. They're all but gone on the south slopes, but on the north slopes and in the shadow, of course, they are still very much present. Spada JC Lisek is saying, it's crazy that I've learned something about crocheting and sewing in my late 20s, but my mom had crocheting, knitting, and sewing in school. Did you have none of those in school? Because, I mean, depending on what kind... The problem in Norway is that we have, arts and craft as a class, and what you learn very much depends on what your teacher knows in terms of arts and crafts. So we had a bit of sewing. We also had drawing, of course, because drawing is pretty affordable for most schools in terms of supplies. Paper is not the worst, but we also had some knitting. We did not have crochet because our teacher didn't know it, but I know other people who absolutely had crochet in school. Some even had weaving, which we did not have. Hello, Smithy. Welcome. I hope you are having a good Thursday. Been a while since you've been able to catch us alive. Well, I feel like it's been a while since I've been able to make one too. I feel like we're cancelling every other live because I'm sick, which makes me very frustrated. But today we made it, and both of us made it, so that is good. Like, managed to show up at the same time. Well done, us. Background, I'm from Poland. Ah, I see. Yeah, I find that very interesting because I have Polish friends who are a little older than me who also had crafting, like right after the fall and everything, who had crafting in schools. So it very much depends. And I also think it depends a lot on what kind of school. Like if it's a wealthier area, they're probably more likely to have arts and finer arts, whereas working class schools, which I went to, more likely to have crafts like knitting and crocheting. Interestingly enough, like especially Lynn and I in chat, we talk about this so much, like the subtle, small ways that class differences keep showing up in different formats that you don't even think about until you're like, oh yeah, that's a good point. Fritzel says, oh, they were thinking they'd missed the stream yesterday, but the week has just been chaotic. Yeah, no, I think we... Yes, my calendar does say that it is Thursday, so I didn't accidentally make a stream on a Friday and think it was Thursday, because that could just as easily have happened. It could just as easily have gone the other way around. Stripy Crayon says they think they remember weaving with strips of colored paper in school. That's an interesting way of introducing weaving concepts. That is pretty cool. Yeah, we did not do that, but that sounds nice. Fruitsil says that when they were young, knotting and crocheting was gendered. The boys got taught some basic carpentry skills. We got taught carpentry skills too. We did not have gendered classes, luckily. We had arts and crafts, and sometimes you were in the carpentry room, and sometimes you were in the crafting room, and the class was not divided by gender, luckily. So we were allowed to do, the girls were also allowed to do carpentry, because why not? So that's sad. That's quite frustrating that you had to be in gendered classes for that. I hope we are making progress from that. Kelly says, in the 70s and 80s, California, I still had some home economics in 7th grade. We did cooking and maybe mending. I was also able to woodshop once in high school. You chose an elective. Oh, we had all of those without having to choose an elective. We had cooking in 4th and 9th grade. Arts and crafts was a thoroughfare, and sadly, home economics was only one class in cooking, and people didn't want to hear about cleaning and, managing the finances when we could be cooking and get free lunch. So we had some of that. We also had swimming in 3rd and 4th grade, which was very useful. And then sometimes in gym we would have bike exercises and sort of a bike license in a way, where you had to do a test to prove that you were safe enough in traffic to be allowed to bike to school. Loxler says, my school had an elective home economics class. It was mostly sewing, but they did bring in a knitting instructor who wasn't normally a teacher. It's so interesting to hear how the different school systems split up the various tasks. Because for us, home economics was in the knitting class, and then only a tiny fraction of that class. And arts and crafts was all lumped in together with crafting and drawing and carpentry, and it was all arts and crafts, the whole of it. We also did embroidery on paper, which I found very unsatisfactory, because I don't remember what grade we were in, but it must have been pretty early. So the 3rd grade, maybe 3rd or 4th. Could it have been that late? Somewhere in primary school. I must have been, say 3rd grade, that we had got a piece of paper and we embroidered on from one dot to another. So we're just like dot to dot kind of thing. And I was so disappointed, because you came to school to learn, and I had already been doing cross-stitching by pattern at home. So I was like, when are we getting to the real embroidery things? But of course, people come from very different backgrounds and skill levels, so you have to start somewhere. Good evening, Doro. I hope you are having a good time from Germany. I hope your weather is slightly less windy than ours, because it is quite chilly outside. Rebecca says, in my school you could choose either home economic or industrial art. I did both. That sounds very interesting. We once had one day in primary school where we could choose different things, and I chose archery, and that was a lot of fun. Fruitzil says it sounds like my education was very similar to theirs. Yeah, it could be. Apart from the gendered thing, luckily we were not very gendered, but there was some basic dabbling in a lot of different crafting. Not really enough to get proficient in anything, just to like show you the technique. If you wanted to get better at it, you did have to have support at home because the teachers were not able to go in depth on any one subject. And we are about to have some ads. If you are new to this channel, we pause for ads, we grab our beverage of choice if we have one, and we chill out. You don't miss anything, so have no fear. We will just chill. Alright, let's see what else. Joelle says, the only crochet I got was making a long string of single crochets, and for knitting we only had one garter stitch square. We weren't allowed to start or finish ourselves. Oh no, that sounds quite sad if you actually wanted to learn anything. But I think it was similar for us with knitting too. Like I remember in research some fellow classmates running around with some very wonky scarves, with garter stitch, and I don't remember any other more elaborate knitting projects. That wasn't it was kind of, you got introduced to the technique, and that was that. Then you had to move on to something else. So if you didn't have someone at home who knew more about it, you were pretty stuck. Emma says, I went to high school around 10 years ago in a small town in the USA. We didn't have home economics, cooking, crafting, or any type of carpentry. We had one basic art class, elective with a bad teacher. Oh no, that is so sad. Oh, we need to make stuff with our hands. It's so important for our brains. But yeah, that is, from what I understand, that is pretty much the expectation in a lot of US schools, is that most stuff is the theory and not a lot of practical application, like no swimming lessons and no biking proficiency tests and no good. Like things fading everywhere because they're, of course, just like with chemistry, where lab is the expensive part of the class or of the degree. These kind of things require tools and supplies, and if the school can't buy it, maybe they have to get them donated, and then it requires a steady supply, which can be challenging for even the most dedicated of teachers. Frankly, I used to watch with pleasure when parents sew something or used hammer and needle. Yeah, I mean, I just enjoy watching people who know what they're doing. We had a neighbor who was also the grandparents of a friend that I played with when I was a child, and he had a wood carving basement where he would carve the most gorgeous signs with like moose and trees and mountains, very Norwegian, very classical, but gorgeous wood carvings, and then with like a name or a place or something. And he was so skilled. Sitting and watching him work is just a joy. I just love watching skilled, enthusiastic people. Even if it's not a skill that I engage in myself, it's just nice to watch or listen to people who are really excited about something. I remember having a how to knit book and getting frustrated at first because all the illustrations were for right-handed knitters. Yeah, I feel you. I knit right-handed now because I was pretty much forced to, but it takes a while when your natural inclination is left-handedness. Luckily, there are more left-handed accommodations these days, even small things. When we did cursive in school, which in Norway, at least when I went to school, you pretty much only do cursive. You don't do block print or anything like that. You learn to write cursive, and then as you get older, at least I did, you kind of loosen it up and it gets a little bit closer to typeface. Or, what is it, separate? And we had this book where you were supposed to practice your cursive with different angles and different swooshes and swings and different things. And when I went to school, this is a tiny thing, and yet it frustrated me greatly. When you're left-handed, the book had... So imagine you have a basic, like, A4 or US letter-sized book, and on one side, on the left-hand side, you have the thing you're supposed to copy. And then on the right-hand side, you have the lines that you are copying them into. So when you're left-handed, I had to constantly lift my arm, see what I was copying, then copy a word or a letter, and then lift my hand again, my arm again, write the next word, and the next word, and the next word. Whereas my classmates could just write as is. And 7 years later, when my baby brother went to school, they had left-handed cursive books, where you had the text you were copying on the right and your lines on the left, so he could also just sit and just write and not have to lift his arm for every word that you needed to remember to check. Just such a tiny, tiny thing could make such a huge difference. Smithy says, I went to a rural/suburban school in the Midwest US, and our arts electives were mostly fine arts, but my 5th grade teacher taught us how to weave baskets. Oh, I want to try to do that. That looks so cool. Not a lot of willow in Norway, but oh, it looks so amazing. And they weave with other things too, like spruce roots and oak wood. It's just... Oh. Basket weaving is wizardry. I think it's fantastic. And more comments. In middle and high school, we could choose woodshop and metalworking, engine repair, construction electives because we were a big farming community. Those practical skills are so important. In my secondary school, they stopped when I joined, which is really sad, but they had it for my older brother. They had an elective where you could do... Oh, what are they called? They're not motorcycles. Are they called mopeds in English too? Like they're a smaller grade motorized bike, but they are not a full strong motorcycle. They're kind of a chiller, like a scooter. A scooter is a type of moped, but there are different kinds too. And they got to have mechanics on those scooters, especially if they brought their own, if they had like saved up to get one, because they're not that expensive compared to other modes of transportation when you have some distance to get to school and to other things. And they had mechanics. They had like... It's called moped? Thank you, Luxolaire. Good. So they had classes because the age limit for driving a moped in Norway is 16, whereas the driving for a car is 18, like the limit for taking the license. So they had an elective where they taught mechanics, they taught them to repair their moped, to troubleshoot, to maintain it, to do all the good stuff, and then they also taught them to drive them. And the prize at the end was that they were skilled enough to do the driving test, so they got the license, and it was a enormously popular class, especially among the boys, but a lot of the other students too. And it was just that class sometimes was the thing that would bring a student to come to school that day, and then they would, since they were there, a lot of the time they would join the rest of their classes as well if they weren't, if they were a bit burnt out with school and didn't really want to be there. But that class would get them to come in the morning, and then they kind of were like, well, now I might as well stay for the rest too, and that helped a lot of people get through school because there was that joyous thing that they could look forward to among the things that were hard and heavy and not something that they wanted to do. Slime Kitten Void says, I too am struggling with that right hand as default thing my whole life as a lefty, and now my right arm has had nerve damage for years, and so a ton of the skills I learned I can't do as effectively. Oh no, that is so frustrating. That is no fun at all. I hope you are taking good care of yourself and resting from that, because that nerve damage is no joke. Stripey Crayon says they are jealous of the left-handed cursive book. I know, I was too. I was just that little bit too old to enjoy those spoils, but my little brother could enjoy it, so I was very happy for him. But boy, do I wish that I had had the similar luxury as well. Fertzels called the moped class an incentive class, and I guess it is. In many ways it was, but I mean, they still were taught, they still learned valuable skills, one of which being transporting yourself around on a vehicle, but also basic mechanics and maintenance and a lot of other cool things. But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, in many ways an incentive class, but I would say worth it, because it got a lot of people through school that maybe otherwise would have struggled. And Emma says their town was mostly farming, but had no money. Oh no. Weaving baskets sounds so fun to learn. Oh, I agree. It looks like such a fun skill. Whenever I watch Victorian Farm and Ruth Goodman is weaving with, oh, I can't remember his name, a very sweet fellow. He's showing you how to do baskets with oak, splicing, no, not splicing, splitting oak and weaving with it and getting really strong baskets. I'm like, oh, I want to learn to do that. That looks amazing. Oh, Smithy says they used reeds. That is interesting. Oh yeah, that makes sense. You being in the US with all the sweetgrass and everything like that. I just somehow associate weaving baskets a lot, at least here in Europe, a lot with willow, which does not grow well in Norway. It grows in the south in some areas, but it gets a bit cold the rest of the places. But we have spruce roots, which I understand is also a thing that you do in the US as well, in addition to sweetgrass and other reeds. Maybe I should try picking. We do have some good reeds. Maybe I should try weaving with those. Victorian Farm, is that a channel name? No, Rebecca, it is a BBC program. I think if you Google BBC Victorian Farm, it's very frustrating though, because there are some really bad historical channels that are like copying them and the quality is awful, but a lot of the time it's difficult to get BBC programs out of the UK without buying it. So we ended up buying the DVDs. It's a program, a series where a set of historians, 2 archaeologists and 1 historian, are living as Victorian farmers in rural England. And they try to get through a whole year with different activities, farming sheep and geese and sewing things and maintaining things. And it was my first ever encounter with what I'm sort of calling low emotional drama TV. Like a lot of competitions, think like MasterChef or I don't know, sewing competitions cooking competitions are very like intense. You know, they try to amp the drama, they try to have people be mean to each other to get people to watch so that there is like engagement. But with Victorian Farm, there is none of that. They're just, you know, here are historical experts who know what they're doing and they're making cozy TV, and I just love it. There are no emotional stakes. Well, there are some emotional stakes, but you just put it on in the background and it's not like those competitions where they like try to ramp the emotions up and then you're like all anxious and they're trying to be super dramatic, and I don't like that. I find it quite exhausting most of the time. So I look for and also try to create with the channel, that's part of my motivation, like low stakes entertainment where you can just chill and hang out and not have to feel like if you don't pay attention in the next 5 minutes you're gonna miss out on something, because I find that exhausting. Is that the program with 2 women cooking? That is part of it, but let's see if we can find if BBC has a page for it. I think parts of it is on YouTube, but I'm not sure it is the official stuff. BBC, do you have a little description? Well, it's not very descriptive, is it? Call it a historical observation documentary. Maybe we will just link the Wikipedia article as we can. At least they have some information about it. Let's see where it is. Ooh. Don't think it is the show with 2 women cooking, because there are more than that. But Red Fir Tree is commenting on incentive classes. Saying that's something my parents have always told us to do when choosing classes, so that you always have at least one class that you like for sure. It definitely helps. Yes, very much so. Like, school is supposed to help us find something we enjoy doing, either at work or out of work. So it's important to actually have something you enjoy and not just push for scholarly achievements, whatever that means. I wish we'd had gardening in school. Maybe I would have chosen to be a gardener then, because I would have discovered how fun it is to make things grow, but we didn't, and I sort of didn't really know what I was getting into. Kelly chiming in saying, no, the 2 women cooking with a motorcycle is called 2 Fat Ladies. Ah, I have heard about that one, I think. All good things. And Fritzl saying too, they were like a female version of the hairy bikers with historical recipes. That's a fantastic description. Max asks, how's my day been? Thank you, Max. Max, it's been alright. I've been working, trying to edit some stuff, trying to fight with software to do what I want and not always managing, but I've had some progress with some editing, so that is good. I have been staying mostly inside drinking my tea because it has been and still is cold and forecasted to be more cold throughout the evening and also tomorrow, so I am planning on keeping myself indoors and just kind of resting and editing and trying to get some progress. And now we are trying to get some progress on this shawl, and I have quite lost track of how long until the end, but I guess we'll just do one repeat after the other and see how far we get. Now we need to figure out what sort of other projects we can start now that a lot of the big ones are kind of starting to wrap up. Which is nice but strange because they've been with us for a long, long time. Fertile sharing that their youngest had a project about everything in the garden right now, and they have just planted the school's vegetables in their gardens. Oh, that's lovely. With the guidance of a dad who is a professional garden planner. Oh, I love that when they get good guidance. So many nurseries and kindergartens have school gardens, and I love it. It's so valuable for the children to see how things actually grow and how food comes to be, which is such a cool and important concept. See, it suits me to choose a pattern with so many picots. They are very cute, but they do slow down the progress a little bit, at least when you are not super proficient. Why is crocheting such a test of whether or not we can actually count while doing something else? One thing is to just count, but the whole counting while otherwise engaged is such a reminder to be cautious, because it's so easy to lose yourself. And then 1, 2. And then the jump, 2. We went shopping to get a new coffee machine. That's nice. It's nice to have things that work. Not so easy when things do not work as they are supposed to. Hope you found a nice one. First graders are encouraged to go twitching. They call out anytime they see a bird outside. That's cool. And also that the yard is pretty muddy because they have a pump working. That is really cool. I have never had got to use a working pump, but that is really interesting. But I can imagine that it would lead to a pretty muddy schoolyard for enthusiastic children. I think we started one too soon for this one. Let's regroup. There we go. Good evening, Alex. I am glad you could join us today. I hope you are working on something fun or just resting and relaxing. There's no obligation to actually have a crafting project. After all, we can just hang out and have a good time. But I am getting ever closer to the finishing line of this shawl, and then I have to use my brain and figure out what to do next. But I hope you're having a good Thursday. Mine has been pretty calm. A nice work day, which is always welcome amidst life in general being hectic and chaotic. The birds are mostly birds. I can't think of the English name of it right now. That is a mood for Jules, because if there's one thing that is really, like, you can never guess what something is, it's biology names. If there is birds or plants or animals or other things, trees, you can't really begin to guess what things are called in English, because the names can often be so different. I mean, sometimes a sparrow is a sparrow, but a lot of the time the names are just super confusing and not at all intuitive for what you would think. If you try to translate anything directly, it just does not work, and people give you very blank stares. So don't worry about that. We are familiar with the woes of botany and other biology having not intuitive translation names, and I often get stuck myself. It's one of the things I've talked about before, but when I was working as a landscape gardener at university and the botanical garden in Tromsø, we had a very international crew, and we had this problem. How do you talk about a flower, plant, or a bush when you have a Spanish person, a Polish person, a Czech person, some French people, we had German people, we had so many different nationalities, and it was never, you could never just guess what it would be called in English, and even then they had to translate it back to their native tongue to figure out what it was. So we ended up just having to either use our phones, of course, but a lot of the times we would just default to the Latin name. So Narcissus for, I was going to say peace lilies, but that's not the word. The daffodils? Yeah, I think it, yeah, because see, now this is a good example. I think they're called daffodils, the yellow bulb plants that you plant in autumn and then they show up in spring, and they show up around Easter, usually in south of Norway. So we call them Easter lilies, not daffodils, if I translated anything directly. So we would just give up trying to call anything by anything other than just the Latin name, because then at least if you just say that we are going to go plant narcissus or something like that in autumn, they can just Google it and find it in their native tongue if they don't know quite what that is. But yeah, we ended up just defaulting to the Latin because it was just so much easier and short-circuited or shortcut that whole naming shenanigans, because it was a mess. Alex says, I was going to say fun, but there were 2 ladies that lately lost their husbands. It was quite emotional, but also nice to see them again. Oh, that is... Yeah, that can be quite tough. But I mean, it's kind of that sad and nice at the same time. Kind of, it's... I can understand what you mean. But I'm glad it was like both a good and a sad time, as life sometimes is. Oh, Max, I'm not gonna differentiate between elementary school or primary school or middle school or secondary school, because we are so international between the US and the English and Netherlands and Sweden and Norway and everything. So that is one way where it shows up that English is not my first language. It's when you have very location specific things like that. So my wording is often a bad mixture of both American English and British English, because since it isn't my first language, I don't have any specific attachment to any one phrase. So to me, elementary school or primary school are just 2 words for the same thing. We had a similar discussion a couple of live streams ago. Comes to, I think, brown houses or row houses or townhouses, or like we had all these different words for a similar type of structure, sometimes differentiated by wealth, but without any connotations to them. For me, I kind of just forget which is which, and they all just sort of go in a box that is kind of, this is the thing that you were thinking about. I find it a little bit. So that is one thing where it definitely shows up that it is not my first language. But then again, I can't talk about a lot of analytical chemistry terminology in Norwegian, because there my working language has always been English, because my supervisor was Greek and my primary engineer, who is amazing, was Spanish. So we just default to English because that is the easiest. But I grasp for words when I have to talk about things in Norwegian, because I am not used to talking about that in that language. Languages are interesting. Fritzl says that one of the funniest name things for them is squirrel, which in Dutch is eekhoorn, which is very close to acorn. Yeah, that is true. It is ekorn in Norwegian as well, so very similar. I've never made that connection, that it is similar to acorn. You are quite right. That is a funny thing, funny coincidence. I had never thought about that. Rebecca says that you have Easter lilies too, but they're completely different. Oh, that is another challenge with trying to translate botany or biology things, is that sometimes if you try to translate something directly, it'll be something completely different. So yeah, in Norway, Easter lilies are daffodils, but for you, Easter lilies is something else entirely, so it just becomes a great jumble of confusion. A red fir tree says primary/elementary are definitely an English dialect divide thing. I'm a native speaker and I mix them up as well, because the area I'm in uses elementary school, but I grew up calling it primary school. Oh, so it's not even an English American thing, it's even within districts, it is still a thing. That is still even more confusing that way. We had a British scientist who was very frustrated because Norwegians learn to call the thing you send your children to before they go to school for kindergartens in English. But in the UK, at least where he come from, they all call them nurseries. So he was very frustrated and had kind of given up on arguing with Norwegians that it isn't called a kindergarten, it's called a nursery, and they were just, that was their little detail that they liked to rant about, just like we had another British scientist who liked to talk about how America and England are two great nations divided by a common language, because there are so many subtle differences between British English and American English, especially in terms of slang, that can be very, very confusing. Yeah, English calls longiflorum Easter lily. Oh, interesting. Yeah, in Norwegian, a direct translation, so påskelilje, are narcissus. So daffodils. Why do we always end up doing language rants in these live streams? Well, it's because we have so many bilingual or even more attendees, as we can all share in the frustrations of and fun things. I've talked about this before, but I think this is fun. When we were living in the UK, we found a little plush dinosaur. I think it's supposed to be a heating pad that you heat up in the microwave, but I never had the heart to put him in the microwave. He's too cute. He's a very fluffy little green dinosaur. And we called him Roar, because in Norwegian, Roar is a man's name. It's a boy's name. But in English, the same writing is Rar, just like the sound a dinosaur made. So we called him Roar as a bilingual pun, because it's both a name and a onomatopoeia, so a sound word. And we thought that was great fun. I don't get a lot of them, but I have a couple of bilingual puns, and I find them great fun. They bring me great joy. And woe to whoever tries to translate if I ever write anything that needs to be translated, because if I can wrangle in some bilingual puns, how are you going to translate that? Translators already have such a difficult job, especially translating puns and humor, because that is difficult. Marianne says hi, and we have a lot of stuff going on. Joelle says, I have a Dutch language barrier when it comes to reading knitting patterns, as I've only used English ones so far. It became apparent when I wanted to help someone with their Dutch knitting pattern. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I struggle with reading knitting patterns. I much prefer diagrams, because diagrams transcends language barriers much easier. Like, you can usually guess at what is the increase, what is the decrease, what are the purl and what are the knitting stitches, and what are the yarn overs. You just recognize a roughly, oh, they usually look like this, and you find them and you just understand them, even though it's in Russian or Chinese or whatever, like this crochet pattern. I mean, this is from a Japanese book, but you can still figure out what are the picots and what are the treble crochets and what are the chain stitches, and I so enjoy that. Things that transcend language barriers are just so fun. Rebecca says you have to watch out for crude words between American and British slang. Yes, so much so. Language is already challenged enough as it is. I mean, it's hard enough not to accidentally offend someone as it is. And then when you throw slang into the mix and different nations into the mix and different cultures, oh boy, you just have a lot of caution on your hands. Onomatopoeia, yes. Someone else who loves that word. I love that you like the Ruar pun. It is such a silly pun, and there's so few people that actually understand it, because you have to have the both. But we love our little Ruar dinosaur. Fritzel says, agree, diagrams are the best. Yes, I really enjoy diagrams. I don't like reading knitting patterns at all. Like, if you give me a page full of row 1 and then you have a lot of letters and numbers, and then row 2 and there's a lot of letters and numbers, I go completely cross-eyed. I don't want to read it. I get lost so easily. I would much rather have a diagram. It is much easier for my brain to comprehend. So I generally go for diagrams whenever I can. Red Fir Tree also talks about how there are are many countries that have English as a common second language, that we forget to include them as well. Yes, they can also have some interesting commonalities to watch out for. Especially if something is an expression in one language but not the other. That can lead to some interesting crossovers. The Hectic Hobbyist says Afrikaans has a habit of meshing random words together and pretending that they make sense. Iron pig for porcupine and lazy horse for cheetah. Again, like, if that is the word that you're using in your language, then I suppose there is probably a sense of it. I don't have a working understanding of Afrikaans, so I don't know. But it's very interesting how different people parse language and how they think about language, and the language structure is really, really interesting. I think generally there is this thing where you can tell if someone is thinking in their native language or thinking in English or another language when they are speaking, because if they have a language as a native language that is very different from English, like a very different language family, if they are still thinking in their native language, they will struggle with the sentence structure because it all mixes up. But if they have come to the point where they are thinking in English when they are speaking English, the sentence structure is generally better. But if you are thinking in one language and trying to speak in the other, there's so much translation work going on in your head that the sentence structure will generally be jumbled. Because it's hard! This stuff is challenging. Big question, how do you count the building condignations in Norway? Do you have first floor on the level of the street or not? We do. What is this mess with the ground floor? No, you start on 1, and then you have -1 for the basement, and if you have a big university building, you have like -1, -2, -3 for the negative floors, but we start on the first floor in English, and then there's just second, third, fourth. It makes it very easy to look around. I forget that ground floor is a thing. And we have a lot of touristy jokes about this. Like, we had a sign that said in Norwegian, this toilet is out of order, like it's getting maintained, so please go for the one on the first floor. In Norwegian, which meant that for a country that has a ground floor, it would be on the first floor, will be 1 level up. But what they meant was that it is on the ground floor, because we have no ground floor in Norwegian, and I'm already confusing myself trying to explain this in one of the languages that has a ground floor and Norwegian does not. No, first floor is the ground floor in Norwegian. And it usually takes students quite a while to learn that ground floor is a thing in English. Hello, my sweet. Would you like to join us? I forgot my apron today, so I'm afraid you're gonna be not the most visible. Hello. A dandelion is a horse flower in Dutch, for example? Yes, we do. Sorry, it's the same in Norwegian as well. Although it's actually a horse's hoof in Norwegian is what a dandelion is called. Look who is visiting. Now, can we get slightly better view of you, my sweet. What is that? Why? Oh, that is my own crocheting. There she is. Did you realize that I was sitting here? Like, for example, the Japanese word for volcano is kasan, which means fire mountain or simply volcano. Yeah, there are so many confusing word combinations like that, but we learn to do them. And they also make sense, though, when you think about it. Ground floor is just 0 in Dutch, or began ground, which means trodden ground. Ah, so it's a Dutch thing too. That is interesting. Smithy says, shout out to the social sciences building at my university where you entered on the 5th floor because it was built on the side of a hill and all 7 floors were technically above ground. I love it when they have to get creative like that. It's just how it is, isn't it? Can we twist this a little bit more? So maybe I can have my crocheting as well. You know, you have. It's good that you know that you have to show up for your adoring fans, my love. First floor is the ground floor in Canada too. Sometimes elevators will have an M for main floor, but the one above it will still be 2. So you start... oh, that's also confusing. So you start on something that is not 1, and then you start on 2 because you have M for main floor. Yeah, I think in Norway we don't do that. We just start 1, 2, 3. I still wanted to finish this today, though. No, that is not a chewing stick. Oh, are we getting your sister too? Are you gonna fight? On top of my lap? I hope not. There is enough office for the both of you. Hello. My sweet furry child, who are so small that even the vet had to do a second take. Make sure you weren't underfed. But no, the verdict was not skinny, just small. Lynn says, that is one thing for which learning languages early really helps. When I start learning a new language, I start making sentences in that language almost immediately, even if I have no vocab, rather than going through a translating step. Yeah, same. It's one of the reasons why I never feel like I master any other languages, because I'd never really get to the thinking in the other language properly. I struggle so much and I just keep jumping in between. And then I'm like, no, I only know Norwegian and English because I never get to that proficiency step properly when I'm thinking and sometimes dreaming in the other language. Which is a ride when you start doing it, let me tell you. Hello. In Poland, we have ground floor, parter, and first floor is next. Such a tiny thing that is so different around the world. Oh, you're leaving us already. Are you unable to share an office with your sister, or was it because I didn't bring you snacks? Oh well. Madam Lord of the Snacks. In the US, we also sometimes have a star for the main floor on elevators, especially in case of a main entrance is not on the first floor. That makes some sense, like in terms of getting out of the building or in emergency situations and things like that, to mark where you are supposed to get out if you need to get out of the building. I've only seen a G for ground floor, I think, but then again, I haven't traveled very far, to be honest. So I haven't traveled to a lot of places, so there are many countries I have not experienced. You've definitely dreamed in languages you are not fluent in, says Lynn. I have That's a ride. I have done it a few times in Japanese and German, and it is a goodness. It is it is interesting. Of course, in dream logic, just everything just somehow works. When you wake up, awfully confused. Slime Kitten Void says, the building I had a lot of my science and math classes in college could mainly be entered by sky bridges, cause the ground floor street side was at the bottom of the steepest hill on campus. That sounds challenging. What a jump? Yeah, my youngest loves to be tall. And we have built a set of, let's see if I can show you actually. Let's do a little show and tell, because I'm ever so happy with it, and Embla is really enjoying it. So I'll just, let's see, we will unplug this one for now, get a little bit of shaky cam on the small cam, but you'll be saved on the big one. It will still be stable to here. Oh, why are you upside down? Come on. Be right way up, please. There you go. Hello. Yeah, I've been wanting these for a while, but we got a little kit for putting up cat stuff on the walls so that it takes up less space, but also because it's just really cool. I mean, look at it. And then she can jump over the door, which opens perfectly, like this little segment here just manages to fix the door. And then they have more stuff over here, and then we have more shelves. And a little pouch at the window, which none of them uses, which I'm a little bit sad about. I thought it would be a good view, but yeah. Minnie Madam loves being tall. You also have a bunch of adoring fans, did you know that? Yeah. You are very tall. They have the shelf here with fabrics that gives them a good access point, but as we saw, Madam also likes to just jump, because she is a very jumpy little child. Let's see, where is... Oh, no, that is not... Come on, what is the right orientation for you? Please, is that... No? What? Madam Camera, please. We were friends. Nope, you... Then I quit. Come on. Technology. Will you cooperate, please? What is the angle of that? I guess that kind of works. Not quite what I had in mind, but where were we? Lynn says the most confusing is when you dream in several languages at once. I have not experienced that yet, Lynn. That sounds exhausting, but also pretty cool. Stripy Crayon says it's lovely that we can just see her fluffy tail in top of the frame. Oh yeah, I guess you can. Yeah, I had hoped to frame like a little bit of the cat tree too, but it's pretty challenging to get a framing that works where I can still see the computer screen and actually see what people are writing. That is my biggest problem, is getting the camera far enough back, but also making sure that I can read what is going on without having too much tech shenanigans on the screen for you all. Still get a little bit of tech shenanigans, but... A red fir tree says, I do that as well. My favorite is when I substitute a Mandarin word into whatever I'm trying to say because my brain gave me the first non-English word it could think of. Yeah, I always I know this is a very common thing with languages, but I always have the problem, and it's so frustrating when you're trying to learn a language, where I can read and interpret a language a lot sooner than, a lot faster than you can actually individually come up with the word when you're trying to have a conversation with someone. So reading a text is much easier than having an active conversation with someone else, because you have to reading and realizing what it means. It's very different from calling up the word that you need from no basis, sort of. And that is always a little bit demotivating. Like, why can I interpret so much more than I can actually speak? But it is what it is. Yeah, I have a friend who speaks Chinese, and she's shown me the periodic table in Chinese characters, and she even explained how it works and how, you can recognize the different, what are they called, radicals of the writing, because you see that they recognize different parts, and you can also kind of see what were entered early and what were entered later, because some have much older characters and some have much newer characters. It was so cool. Really interesting stuff. Lynn says, I don't think my brain has enough of a "this is the real native language" category for it to bunch other languages together. Huh. I mean, so much of my entire adult life has been English as the working language, like the language at work, and also most of the literature and media. So there's so much English that it's just everywhere. I think I'd be hard pressed to be working in only Norwegian at a job, because I'm so used to working primarily in English, because you have an international group of colleagues, so that is the easiest way to make sure everybody understands what is going on. Fritzl says, I used to have a Swedish violin teacher. All of my books were in Swedish. As a result of that, I could read them. That is cool. It's always good to be exposed to many languages. When I was a kid, we had Cartoon Network, but it hadn't yet been translated to, it was so long ago that all of Scandinavia, because Swedish, Danish, and Norwegian are pretty similar. And if you're exposed to the other languages as a child, and you are a little bit used to different dialect and different languages, then so I can understand both Danish and Swedish, both because of exposure and because my dialect is one of the ones that is closest to both of them. And Cartoon Network, when I was a child, was purely in... Oh, good morning. Was only in Swedish. So that was one of the reasons I was exposed to a lot of Swedish as a child, was that the one cartoon channel that some of my friends had so we could watch when we were hanging out with them was in Swedish. And that was one way we could learn. Thank you for startling the everything out of me. I read Fir Tree confirms that they are indeed called radicals. I could remember the right thing. I can't read a lick of them. I have tried to learn the hiragana and the katakana multiple times. I can read the hiragana, most of it. It's been a while since I practiced. But the kanjis are such a challenge. Really fun, but challenging. But it really helps to have things like that, like learning the different radicals that made up the different pieces. Like many trees together becomes forest, makes so much sense. It is also a really fun way to learn. There was this app that was like flashcard. I think it was called Memrise. Not Memorize, but Memrise without the O. That was quite fun. Like, again, gamifying things in different ways can make learning fun, but having a learning buddy makes it even more fun, because trying to learn just by yourself is not the easiest. First agrees pretty much, but I would never understand spoken Swedish. Yeah, it's so different. I find Danish as well is really easy to read. Can be difficult to listen to if they sometimes if they speak very fast, but reading is very easy. Slime Kitten Void asks, did you watch Cow and Chicken? That was one of my favorites. I did. That was one of the ones that showed up. But I also watched, and I don't know, I have never heard anyone else talk about this, so sometimes I worry that this was just something I came up with and that it doesn't actually exist. But when I was a kid, sometimes there was this, if I woke up before 6 a.m. and I could, when I was a little bit older and my little brother got a little bit older, we actually had Cartoon Network at home in my early teens. That was exciting. And we're about to have some ads, so let's take a little bit of a break and I can try to think about how to talk about this story, and then we can come back to it when I come back, and I will tell the story of the magical Cartoon Network show that I used to watch in the morning that I have heard no one else talking about, but maybe some of you will know it. Alright, so when I was like a very early teenagers, like maybe 11 or 12, sometimes I would wake up before 6 a.m., which was when I would usually get up, and also when my dad would get up to go to work. And it wasn't really a spoken rule that you weren't allowed to get up before that, but I mean, when you have people working heavy manual labor jobs, they need their sleep. So sometimes if I was really awake at like 5 a.m., I would sneak up into the living room very quietly and I would put the television on the first volume, like only that one volume, no more, just one step above muting. And I would turn on Cartoon Network, and there was this English show, because 6 a.m. was when it switched to first Swedish and then later Norwegian, when they actually translated the cartoons both for Denmark and Norway in addition to Sweden. But before 6 a.m. for many years they were in English in the middle during the night. And there was this dragon program. I just remember this cartoon about a dragon, and it was really cute and really sweet. And I would sit there in the dark in the living room. My dad would even get up and sit in the kitchen and eat and wouldn't notice that I had gotten up because I was just so quiet sitting there and watching my little cartoon. But I just remember that it had a dragon and it was the best. It was a really fun time and good English practice for someone to start learning. But I have never figured out what it was actually called. But yeah, no one else seems to agree that was actually a thing, so I'm starting to wonder if I'm just making stuff up, but I remember it so well the few times that I did it. Also, the Little Mermaid cartoon was a favorite of mine. It was very, very cute, very pretty fishes. A Red Fir Tree says, yes, I know that one. I assume you mean memorize. I use it to practice my Arabic. Can't make up your mind today. Too many things going on elsewhere. Was it a dragon and a little girl that wanted to be a knight? It might have been. I just remember that it was very sweet. Like a lot of Cartoon Network things were a little bit more like rough around the edges, like Freakazoid or Cow and Chicken and Courage the Cowardly Dog. They had like a very distinct Cartoon Network-y style, but this dragon cartoon was like a lot cuter in art style. It might have had a little girl who wanted to be a knight. It could be. I am curious for any any tips on this mystery, honestly, because it's been a mystery my whole adult life. I could never figure out what I was actually watching. Joelle says, I grew up with Dutch, Frisian, and Stellingwerfs. Oops. Near the border of another province, so language was interesting. I believe you. And says, I think that is why I still made so many grammar and word mistakes nowadays. Yeah, it can be. I had a friend in uni who from Somalia, and you have that language. Yeah, I think it's Somalian. Or is it a variant of Arabic? I can't remember. But you have that language, and then she also had... You don't have to make artifacts for the viewers. If you're not going to purr into the microphone, kindly leave it alone. So she knew Norwegian and English and Somali. And I think Arabic. So I think they actually had a local dialect as well as Arabic. So 4 languages in total. And her and another friend as well who spoke Arabic, English, Norwegian, French, Chinese, and Spanish. She was a polyglot. She was so skilled with languages. I could only dream. And they both talk about how, yes, they can make themselves understood in all the languages that they have been taught growing up, but they don't have the vocabulary, like the depth and breadth of vocabulary that comes with having one native language, because, I mean, the brain does have limitations, and that was something that they sometimes missed. But they still had so much fun being understood in the various languages that still they find it very worth it. Slime Kitten Void suggests Dragon Tales. And Red Fir Tree comments that I think Dragon Tales was only on PBS. I don't know. I'm going to make a note of that, but it might be that. I don't know if there's a difference in what the different networks buy and send, depending on which region they're in, because sometimes there are regional differences. Just like today there are regional differences between what is available on Netflix in Norway and what is available on Netflix in the UK and US. So maybe regional differences? I am not sure. Rebecca says, this is inspiring me to return to my language studies. Yes, languages are fantastic. I mean, communication is so important, and so much you can... There is so much truth to the whole thing about, like, language is culture, is... like, knowing what language and someone comes from, it really informs how they see the world, what they put emphasis on, what they find easy, what they find difficult. There are so many things in language that affects how we see the world that are like just... I just love learning more about it. Am I working with the thick? I think I'm working with the thicker stick. Lynn says, one cartoon I really loved as a kid was a wordless one about a line on a chalkboard. I'd take the shape of the character who always got into shenanigans and interacted with the person drawing on the board. That sounds like La Linnea, but it isn't, is it? It's something a little bit slightly different. Dragon Tales has many dragons. From what I'm hearing, this only had the one. Yeah, I can only remember one dragon. But, I mean, it was quite a while ago at this point, and I've tried to figure it out so many times that my memory is probably getting a bit warped too from trying to tease out more detail. Just getting more confused as a result. But maybe it shall just remain a mystery. Joelle asks, does anyone else have the experience of becoming proficient in one language, but in doing so losing the conversational skill of talking in another language? I only have 2 languages that I can actually converse in, so I can't say I have. I do still have working use of both English and Norwegian, but I keep trying to learn other languages like German and French and Spanish, and they just don't stick. They are just so far from my English proficiency that you just get so demotivated, to be honest. And languages were never my strong suit. I fought very hard to one day actually manage to communicate in English, and I have not managed to emulate that with any other language since. Though lack of immersion is a big part of that. Maybe Cartoon Network had to play educational ones for a percentage of their airtime. That could be. I mean, different rules in different regions will affect things like that. Oh, it was La Linnea you were thinking about. Yeah, that one was popular in Norway too. It's a good one. And soap opera, the French one with the fruit being cut up into different animals. That was a fun one. Or soup opera was what it was called, because vegetables, puns. The pun is strong with everyone. Maybe Dragon's Lair. I googled, it was on Boomerang for Cartoon Network in the 80s. Interesting. Can't reach my keyboard, madam. Okay, you are too cute. Maybe I will try to Google it later. That is a contender. At least we have some suggestions. That is always exciting. There. Hello, my tall child. And Fertil says only temporary with the language switch in, as in for an hour or so after switching. Interesting. It's interesting how language is parsed in the brain and how different people make things work. We are getting towards the end. And then we have another blanket for the cats to enjoy. They do love their wool. They're very discerning. I think the only synthetic blanket they will tolerate, I think we only have the one too, is a heating blanket that Spouse got a few years ago that they are very much enjoying in when it's really cold, or when you've been outside in the winter and you are cold to the bone and you just need some help getting warm again. Then the heating blanket is very helpful because it actually gives you some external heat in addition to radiating your own heat back at you. And both the cats are very fond of the heating blanket, but other than that they are all about the wool. Wool is just the best. Soup opera? How funny. Yeah, that was a thing. It went on the Norwegian equivalent of the BBC, where we had I suppose they call it child's TV when I was a child, and it was from 6 p.m. to 6:30 was when you had child TV, a program where, among others, the soup opera was a regular appearance. And there was no, return or streaming back then. If you were out playing or visiting someone when child TV was on, then you missed it. And it was half an hour every day, and that was it. Except in the weekends or during holidays, then you got a little bit more. But for most days, it was half an hour. And when I remember my grandparents and parents talking about that they had radio shows doing the same things, and it was the same, like from 6 to 6:30. And that was that. And they would have, radio shows and what are they called? No, in Norwegian, they're called listening plays, but they are so acting, but in only audio format. I can't remember the word for it, but sometimes they do that with books too. Like they'll do. I'm trying to think of the word. I think I've come across sometimes audio plays, radio plays. Word. But they will do a dramatic reading of and put it on a podcast or something like that, and they can be really entertaining. I like them. Lynn says, I wonder if there's any here are what shows aired on this channel and these days, resources around. You never know what someone's special interest and shockingly well documented. That is very true. Sometimes someone has made a web page that is exactly what you're looking for and you didn't even realize. And Max. Your mother ate a donut and she doesn't usually eat sweets, but it might have increased more after your sister's death. I think that is pretty common for a lot of people who are grieving to find comfort in food. So I think even if that is not something you do, that might be a comfort to her, and it's good that she finds something to comfort her. Blue Iris says, good afternoon, popping in to say hi. Hello, Blue Iris. Used up my crafty hand strength earlier on the day ironing pattern paper. Cutting out pattern pieces and ironing fabric for a Japanese-style work apron. Oh, those are amazing. I love them. But it's sad that you used up all your hand strength, but welcome. We are, 3 or 4 stitches away from actually finishing this. Actually finishing. How exciting. Very enthused. Very nice. Red Fir Tree suggests voice acting, and Slime Kitten Void says radio drama. I think that's the word. Yeah, radio drama. Because they all do it together, and they can be they have sound effects and music and a lot of the things, and they can be very entertaining. Do recommend. I even know that there was I heard about this podcast that was basically a radio drama. That was a murder mystery, but they were a murder mystery that was a radio drama that were pretending to be a character making a podcast about murder mysteries, and then there was a murder mystery happening around, like on the podcast as well. It was a whole thing. And oh no, have I have no needle within reach. I was supposed to fix that so that I could actually finish. But thread fastened. Can we just, if I can use my crochet hook, can we kind of just sneak all the stitches? It's slow going to fasten thread with the crochet hook, but you can convince it to happen. Radio dramas were very 1930s, really. Yeah, no, I've still encountered them. I think that they're making a comeback too. They are quite fun. Yes. Earlier this week I made more progress on my Phoenix embroidery. Hooray! Nice, we're all making progress on many different things. Marianne says it's not exactly the same, but you have dramatized adaptations in audiobook format now. I like those. I think they can be really enjoyable. I mean, I like regular audiobooks too, but it's nice with some variety sometimes. Blue Iris says, I loved CBC radio dramas in the 90s. Yeah, there are so many fun ways to get you some entertainment. There's one I think hasn't been around for a while now. I listened to in my 20s called The Thrilling Adventure Hour. Oh, I like podcasts. They are nice. I mean, my favorite is still Hidden Brain, but there are so many good ones. I mean, often I just go for a walk without anything on my ears, so I can just enjoy nature and just let my brain wander, but especially on the bus or other noisy places, it's very nice to have something to listen to. Stripey Crayons is struggling on a crafting crisis where my piece is stuck to itself in the oven and I'm trying to rescue it. Oh no! That does not sound very nice. Hopefully you can manage. That is not a fun place to be. The Penguin audiobook edition of Discworld is a real treat. Yes, it's a very good one. I do enjoy. Hi. You having a good time up in your castle? Being tall? We went from no children in the workroom to both children in the workroom, but only one on screen. You're very melty, madam. Although maybe we can try to change the catagram to showing the little madam. Let's see. Can we risk it? Oh, you are quite far away, are you not? Askew! There she is. Yeah, this is my stick. You have Matabe sticks for chewing. This is my stick. It is not for chewing. I know that you like chewing things, but this one is mine. If I can press it flat while it cools, I may have saved it. I hope you find a lot of heavy books and things that can help you with that, so that it can be rescued. It's so frustrating when things like that happen. So best of luck, fingers crossed. Embla sending you good vibes from her very tall castle. Fritzel says, I'm currently listening to Natalie Haynes' book Medusa's Jar, which is a lovely discussion of women-centered Greek myths. Her stands up for the classics is also a great radio show / podcast. That is a good recommendation. I love that. So many good podcasts about interesting topics. Come on now. Why do I keep using the bigger hook? That is not. Almost. Many talks in chat about stripy crayons, exciting mandala suncatcher in shrink plastic. That does. I stumbled across those shrink plastic projects online and they look like a lot of fun. Especially how you can make big details and then shrink it and they become really small details. That does appeal to me. It's a fun way to get all the extra details. And it's just fun to make things. Oh, come on. We are so close to... It would have been faster with the sewing needle, but it gets done this way. There we are. So just as we hope that Stripy Crayons project gets rescued, we have one very big shawl. Not quite sure how to show you in any way, shape or form efficiently, but it now has a very wrinkly and big crochet edge for all the stitches going on. I always think these are small when I make them, and then it turns out that they are actually quite large. One shawl. Ooh. Ah, Luxler noticed. I was just gonna say, we did indeed win Yarn Chicken, and I have, if I wound this up, this is how much yarn I have left. It is an eyeball-sized, tiny ball of yarn, which, I mean, considering how much yarn Crochet uses, I think this is very successful. Ooh, don't need to lose it just because. Very satisfying. I do have more of this yarn because white undyed yarn is very versatile, but still really satisfying to to do that. Try it on. Let's see. Can we do that with a little mini madam hanging out? I mean, we can try it on the mini madam. Would you like a shawl, sweetie? Look at you being very cute. You won't tolerate that for long because it gets a bit warm, but I had to step out for 10 minutes. What did I miss? You missed the whole shawl being done after all these years. No, years. After all these months. It has not been years. It is done. And I'm not quite sure. People are asking me to put it on and I'm like, how do with cat on lap? Maybe I can put it over. This is why I don't like doing reveals for my videos either. It's my least favorite part because I'm not very photogenic. I just don't like showing things. I like making the thing and showing you how I made the thing and talking to you about maybe you making the thing as well. But showing off the done thing? Nah, I'm done making it. That means I'm done with the project. We are somewhat successful. Oh, it is very cozy and very fluffy. And Stripey Crayon says, I think my crisis was successfully resolved. Hooray! More hoorays for success for everyone. That is good to hear. It would have been very sad if you couldn't salvage it, but thank you everyone. We have successfully finished one of our big projects, which means we need more big projects, or say more easy projects, because being able to talk, to chat while crafting does require a certain level of easygoing craft. I love the size, thank you. It is very fluffy, do recommend. Oh, it's already I'm feeling very warm and nice. And it is a good day to feel warm. And the good thing about triangular shawls like this is that you can make the size exactly what you want, which I love. Like, you can make them as big or as small as you like. There is no... You can just keep going. I also really like to make square blankets for the same reason, like for baby blankets, where you start on double point needles and you start with like 4 stitches in the center, just like you would crochet, and you increase in all directions, just like a triangular shawl, only times 2, so you have a square rather than a triangle. And it is just... And then when you have enough stitches, you just transfer it to a round needle instead of double point needles, and you just can go as long as you want and get a symmetrical thing. Where can we get the pattern again? Let me see. On my website, which I redesigned. I still can't really reach my keyboard. I'm sorry, darling. I know you are flipping your tail at me. But there is a pattern here in my little shop, which I'm working on getting more patterns on eventually. Let's see. And the way the shop works, this is very important for me. I spent a long time making it work, but the shop works on a system called Name Your Price, which some of you have probably heard about before. The way Name Your Price means that you pay what you think the pattern is worth, what you feel that you can spare. So if you are struggling and you're on disabilities, or you have a really tight time, like you don't have any money, you can choose to pay nothing. You can choose to get it for free. That is an option. That was really important to me when I designed that shop. There are only 2 items in the shop that don't follow that system at the moment, and that is the letters. Like, I'm offering to write letters if you want for a donation to support the building of the channel, and obviously that kind of needs some kind of minimum, because otherwise I would be in minus, because postage costs money, and then stationery, and of course my time writing, and all of those things costs money. So I did have to put a minimum on that. But the patterns, even though I do spend some time up front making the pattern, like it takes me some hours, working hours to make it, it can then just kind of go and live on the website indefinitely without me having to do additional work on it. So I figure that that is kind of, so all of those can be accessible for free if people feel like. But of course, I appreciate, as many creators, I appreciate if you wish to give a little something for the time. But if you are in a financially tight position and you want crafts to have joy, and you have like some yarn or you find it in a charity shop, you are absolutely, there's no judgment from my side if people choose to make use of the free option. Like, that is there for a reason, and that is really important for me, that people don't feel like they can't do that or they will feel shameful. No. It is there because people are in different situations, and we want to respect that. And crafts can bring so much joy to difficult situations that was an important thing for me, that I was insisting on implementing, and spent many hours making sure the plugins were working. I had some community members also who had been product testers and website testers help me out, make sure the cross-currency things were working and that everything was actually working when I launched it. So I'm very grateful to the community who actually helps me out with these things. It's very, very nice. So if you also would like a community, the Discord in the pinned comments is available for you. We call Embla the drumstick because she likes to lie with her paw, as illustrated, one paw hanging off whatever she's sleeping on, which I think is adorable, and we call it a drumstick because she's cute. Sud is the slug because she likes to be very long when she's sleeping. She likes to sleep in that groove between your legs when you have your legs straight out. She likes to be as long as she possibly can be between your legs, looking for all. I just think that she looks like those cute little black slugs that I grew up with. When it was raining, they would pop out. So I endearingly, with all the love, call her my little slug because she likes to be very, very long. But I think that is it for this time. I don't have any new projects to show you, so the only thing I can do, I suppose, is make mayhem. And by pulling out the snack jar. That will get us quite excited. I need to roll this a little bit more to get that out here. That will give us some very... Yes, sweetie! Yeah, I know! Yeah, I know. Can we actually show? You are gonna come jumping. Can we actually show you getting the snacks? Hello. Oh, there's a face. Come on. Oh no. Ruined the camera again. Technology. Restart. Hello. Suppose what we can do before we finish for the day is have the camera be upside down because technology loves me today. Come on. We can do it. I believe. There she is. Yes, I have snacks. Would you like one? Yeah. Where can you actually see? Hello. Second child. Yes, you can have one too if you actually grab it before your sister does. You draw me like one of your French cats, exactly. There you go. There, two each. No, 2 each is plenty. You get snacks so many times throughout the day that can't go overboard. I'm so fortunate to live where they have such wonderful natural yarns. I am indeed very, very lucky that we have a lot of wool in Norway, very easy to get. Smithy says, my cat Beacon likes to do a similar thing with his arm. Yeah, it's super cute. When it's like they're sleeping on a thing and they just completely... and one leg just sticking out. You have any beginnings of ideas for what I want to make next? Well, I'm hoping to start some cardigans that I have wool for. I have a cardigan for both Spouse and me, but I haven't started them. So if I have the brain space to actually start it by next time, maybe. If not, we might have to do a little small project before I get started on that, because I do need brain space to start. Crunch, crunch, yeah. I hope it wasn't too loud for you. She was quite close to the microphone. But anyway, this has been lovely. I am now also cat-free, so I can also move for the end of the stream. But thank you, everyone. This has been lovely. I will just turn this off because there is no cat at the moment. But thank you, everyone, for today. This has been lovely. And I hope you have a nice rest of your day, rest of your week, rest of your month. And I will see you soon, I hope. Bye.